Hello, welcome back to another video. This is the third one. In this one here we will be covering the class and the combat style for the custom companion framework that I've made here. So you can make your own companions. Okay, so let's start here. As we've seen in the previous video when we covered the actor tab, the class, the combat style are both used by the actor and they're quite important. Because the class is how they're gonna spend their skill points in when they level up and stuff. And the combat style is how they are going to behave while in combat. Now, the combat style, in here I will have to explain quite a couple of things. That's why these things here will be in this separate video. Because there's a bit to cover for this. Okay, so let's open up the class. Okay, so once again we have the ID, doesn't matter, that's just the editor ID, you don't need to mess with that. The full name, now this right here you don't really need to name it, but you can just name it whatever your NPC and then class. So what I would do is just call class, okay. Now we've got the attribute weights. I don't know why the hell they called it like this, but overall this is just the health, stamina and magicka. So there was, I believe that there was a certain number for this and for this that you can use as a total, but I think this is fine writing it like this. Okay, so look what I mean is that if you are making a tank melee character, what I would do is I would set the health to 5, I would set the stamina to 2, and I would set magicka to 0. In this case the total will be 7, but that's totally fine because you're just telling it, okay, this much in health, this much in stamina, and this much in magicka. You know, don't go crazy and don't do things like 500, 200 or something, because as you can see, that doesn't work. The maximum is 10. So, I think that in my case, I will make a melee one-handed character. So, I think that it would make sense if that character doesn't level up magicka and just goes for health. So in this case I'm gonna just do 4 and stamina 2. So I think this is quite balanced to me, you know, or perhaps we should do 3 here and then 2 here, so that it's quite a swift one. Okay, so then the next thing here, skill weights. This is how they're gonna level up the skills. So if we're gonna make a one-handed character, we can just pick a one-handed. Is it 3 block? Well, let me think. Should our character use a shield? Well, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, why not? So let's do one-handed 3, blocking 2. So that's quite balanced in my opinion. He or she's gonna use heavy armor. Nah, let's do light armor. So that should be 2 as well. It's quite important, so I think 2 is balanced. Pickpocket, not gonna do pickpocket, not smithing, no. Archery, no. Two-handed, nope. Sneak, no, 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 none of the other things. So I think this is actually quite balanced, you know. As I've said, don't go crazy with putting numbers in the hundreds. This is totally fine. Now, the last thing in here, which I will not cover in the main series of this, is that if you want to make your NPC a trainer, where you have the option of, hey, can you teach me about, for example, one-handed, then it opens up the menu and you can pay them for them to teach you something. I'm gonna make a separate video once we finish this series, where I'm gonna explain to you how you can add the dialogue option and how you can set this up. It's really easy to do, but we are gonna cover the normal thing here first, the normal companion, which is already going to have a lot of options. So once you have set this up, just hit OK. I mean, in my case, I'm gonna hit cancel because I'm not gonna, you know, not gonna do this now anyway. But okay, now the combat style. Combat style. Once again, we have our ID. Now in here, in the general tab, this overall, you know, what I thought was best. You look, the maximum here is 1 and the minimum is 0. So in my case, well, in my experience, I think that the best thing you could do is You can set the offensive and defensive to 0.5 if we're gonna make a melee character and stuff. If we're gonna make a mage, for example, I would suggest you make the offensive multiplier by 1 and the defensive one to 0.50. You know, you can play around with this, but I have found that's how they behave best for me. Group offensive multiplier, avoid threat chance. This I haven't really noticed that this does anything, but this is actually supposed to be that when there are multiple allies around them, that they're gonna be more offensive, and if they're about to die or go down, that they're actually gonna try to avoid it. So I think it's not wrong if you just hit these two to 0.50 and 0.5, 0.5 and 0.5, that's totally fine. Now, this right here, this is probably the most important bit. So if we're gonna make a melee character, we're gonna crank the melee all the way up. Gonna set range to 0 because, you know, our character is only gonna use a sword and shield, so we don't need ranged, we don't need magic, we don't need shout, we don't need staff, and we probably don't want unarmed. We want them to really use a weapon if they have one. So let's set this to 0. If they don't have a weapon and they're in combat, they're gonna use their fists anyway because they don't have anything else. So that's fine. So melee, whoop, all the way up. Now, here, next tab, melee. This is how they're gonna behave. Attack stagger multiplier. I think this is the chance of them attacking when the enemy is staggered. The maximum in here is 10, so I would suggest you leave all of this at 5. Powers, attack stagger. This is when the enemy is staggered. How high the chance is that they're gonna do a power attack on them. In my case, I'm just gonna put all of them in the middle, but as I've said, I just explained to you what it does. You can play around with it how you want. Power attack blocking multiplier. I think this is that when an enemy attacks, the chance of your NPC bashing them to prevent the attack. Now, special attack multiplier, this isn't really used. I think this is something else. So you can just leave this at 0.5. It's not used. I think this is probably a feature from another game, so never mind that. The bash multiplier. Now this is for characters that use shields. So in our case, she's gonna use a shield. Oh, I also didn't give her a shield, so make sure to do that if you're gonna make one. Just open up her inventory and then give her a shield. So, bash multiplier. This is the chance of her bashing. So I think 3 point something would be kind of okay. Bash recoil multiplier. I think, well, I don't really quite know what this does, but I think you can't go wrong if you set this to 0.5 as well. The bash attack multiplier. I think this is actually when an enemy attacks, the chance that she's gonna bash, so I think 5 will be balanced. Bash power attack multiplier, so if an enemy does a power attack, there's gonna be 50% chance that she's gonna bash to cancel, to counter that power attack, Now, this one right here is important if you want to make a dual wielding character who uses 2 swords. So you would have to check allow dual wielding. In my case, she doesn't use it, so I'm not gonna bother with it. Close range. Dueling is for melee characters. Flanking is for mages. So let's do dueling. Dueling, circle multiplier. This is if our companion is gonna rotate around the enemy, to look for different angles to attack. Fallback multiplier is how high the chance is that they're gonna back off a bit. So I think again 1.5 is balanced. Circle multiplier 1.5 is also balanced, so that they stay 50% and that they fall back 50%, so that there's a chance like that. Flanking for mages, flank distance is, I think, running around overall trying to get distance from the enemy, and stalk time is probably kind of the same thing, but the higher you do this right here, the more safe they're gonna behave. And now long range, this is also quite important. Strafe multiplier, I actually usually set this to 1. This is when somebody shoots an arrow at your companion, for example, if you set this to the maximum, there's a really high chance that you're gonna try to dodge it, which I think is quite important, you know, so I usually set this at 1. This doesn't mean that they're always gonna dodge and stuff for some reason, but there's a high chance that they're actually gonna dodge. Flight, this isn't used. This is for dragons, I suppose, so yeah, but this isn't used at all. So once you're done, hit OK. And that's it for this video. Now we've covered the actor, companion, the class, the combat style, and the container. We don't really need to check that. The globals, we don't need that. The message, no, we don't need that. This neither. So the next video will be about not the tracking marker, because the tracking marker is already set up. So the next video is already gonna be the dialogue. So after we have covered the dialogue, once we have done that, we will cover how you can add your custom voice lines, and then after that I'm gonna make another video how you can place your NPC or your companion in the world. And we are gonna also cover the TES5 edit, steps required to create the SEQ file, which is needed. Otherwise, if you load up the game, you try to talk to your companion, but it doesn't work because they just don't want to speak with you. They're just gonna say, "Huh, what, no," because that file isn't there. So you would have to save and reload. So if you just create an SEQ file, they will always talk to you. So there's that. So, alright, that's it for this video. See you in the next one.